Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you guys to our Tech Insider Update. This is Brian Tenney. Our goal today is to give you a fast, rapid-fire update on the changes and advancements that we're seeing in Microsoft space. This is a follow-up to our annual Business Technology Summit that we do. Customers have asked that we do something on a more regular basis to give more current updates, and so this will be rapid-fire, fast-paced, but we hope that it adds value and helps you guys in what you're achieving and accomplishing and rolling out to your organizations every day. So for those who don't know JourneyTEAM, just a real quick intro to who we are. If we have any new people on this webinar, we're a small team of a little over 70 people helping organizations adopt and use technology to reach their goals. We've got about 300 customers. We've been in business for 26 years, 90% referenceable customers, 6 different gold competencies with Microsoft. We've done over 1,300 projects in the past 5 years. We're a 2019 Microsoft Partner of the Year. We've won various awards and happy to be able to push this content out to you guys, and hopefully it adds value. We do a broad spectrum of different technologies across the Microsoft stack primarily. Our presenters today will be Eric Bynes, Eric Roth, BJ Leonard, Greg Crandall, Preston Reynolds, Kip Sorensen, and Dave Ballard. I don't want to spend too much time on intros. We'll jump into that and start rolling. We're going to start with some Cloud and Office 365 updates, jump into Teams, some adoption, change management stuff, SharePoint, Forms and Planner, D365, Power Automate, Exchange Online, Business Central, Power BI and Business Analytics, and then wrap up with some cybersecurity content. So with that in mind, I'm going to hand it over to Eric Roth for our first section.
All right, glad to be with you everyone today. Let's jump right into what's some things in Office 365 that you should be aware of. So first off, some updates are happening. You can now add a personal calendar, or if you can't see it in your tenant, it's coming very soon. This is kind of cool. You can add a personal calendar to your Outlook account. This is so that you can see your kid's soccer schedule inside your work schedule, which is a very good thing for me, other than it's a basketball thing. Anyway, so that's a nice feature. Look for that coming. You do that through the web interface, not the Outlook client. A big one that you may really care about is that this kind of surprised me. In the new versions of Office 365 Pro Plus, Word, Excel, Outlook, etc., Microsoft is going to drive more traffic to Bing.com. They're going to change the default search engine on Google Chrome to Bing when you install Office. I can't wait to hear the clapping. I'm just kidding.
There's a reason why it's quiet.
Exactly. The irony to this is that if you deployed, if users have just gone to the Office portal where they can install Office, there's not a way to prevent that from happening. If you deployed Office through the offline installer or through Intune or some other management method of doing that, you can control that behavior. There's a plugin that they're dropping into Chrome to set its default search engine to Bing. So just heads up on that. Another big thing is a new account management experience for end users. So this is when a user is in Office 365 and they click their name in the upper right-hand corner and they go to their account. They're going to get this new consolidated view, which also aligns to if they went to their account through the myapps.microsoft.com side of the fence. So be aware of that. This is where they can see their sign-ins, which is fantastic. You get a map of the world of where your logins have come from, so you can see if that guy is logging into your account, reset your password, look at the devices that are associated with your account, manage multi-factor authentication. A really nice consolidated My Account view that's coming. And hot off the press, the new Edge browser with the Chromium engine. It's got a really nice integration to Office 365 for integrated single sign-on and stuff. And all the feedback I've heard from everyone who's been running it in beta mode and stuff has been really, really positive. So go check out the new Edge Chromium browser. That's a recent announcement from Microsoft. So there's a few Office 365 updates. And I think next we have Power BI. I could be guessing.
Streams.
We're on to the SharePoint stuff.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah.
So let's jump into the other aspects of Office 365. I don't have very many stream updates, and Brian alluded to this earlier. these are, and even Roth actually kind of alluded to it, is these are things that are rolling out. So you may see them in your tenant, you may have them show up next week or even later today, but they're obviously items that are coming. And so one particular item on Stream that I wanted to bring up that I like is now from within the Stream interface underneath the My Content menu, you will now see a section for meetings. And so anytime that you've ever recorded a meeting within Teams or with other individuals via just a group chat or a one-on-one chat, those meetings will now be placed within this section within the Stream app. So kind of a slick interface. We can chat about Stream even more so, but this was one thing that I just wanted to call out. So let's move on to updates on Microsoft Teams. And once again, rapid fire. So feel free to reach out to us and ping us if you want additional details as always. So one is a secondary ringer. So within your Teams application on your workstation, you can determine what the primary ringer is and the secondary ringer. So then that way, if your Bluetooth headphone set happens to be on the counter, then your secondary ringer could be the speakers on your laptop. So kind of a neat interface. Another item is our ability to pin channels within the Teams client. In this little screenshot here, if you just kind of want to pay attention really quickly, is there is a launch event pin at the very top called X105 Launch Team. That is to the channel below, the channel called Launch Event. So it's not the team that you're pinning, but it's the channel itself. And you'll get notifications and it'll just be located in the top left-hand corner of your Teams client. Moving on. So another setting that we can actually set up within the Teams is when new members are added to a 365 group or to your team, if you want to use that term, we can actually have notifications occur within the Teams client of that new potential colleague. And then we can determine what those notifications or how those notifications show up in that particular setting. Another thing is, and this is a huge win from my perspective, is with every team within with every meeting within the Teams application, there is a corresponding chat conversation that we can have. We now have the capability to add someone to that chat conversation without them having to be as part of the meeting. So mid-meeting, I can come in here or even post-meeting and click on the join, or I can actually hit the little plus sign there of the little members. I can type the individual and then have them join the conversation. And then as you can see, I can determine if they can see the chat history or not, or over a certain period of time. This was a huge win on the Teams client. Second, private channels. So how do I say this? I don't think this is a good idea. So we have posted this video on our YouTube channel. So jump on YouTube, search JourneyTEAM, and we did a more in-depth explanation of how private channels work. It is somewhat of a neat capability. The way it works may not be ideal. The only thing I'd like to point out is in this example, if I created a private channel called budget, the only members that could be part of budget are a subset of the members of marketing. The part I don't like is when I do that, it provisions a SharePoint site collection in the background to store files that are associated to that private channel. I don't like it because that site collection that gets provisioned shows up nowhere in SharePoint administration or in Office 365. It's almost like a ghost rogue site collection. And my fear for a lot of our clients is that it will go unmanaged and it will be more of a chaotic thing than a positive thing. But we can chat through more details if you want to. Next, I'll hand it over to change management.
All right, thanks, Kip. This is BJ Leonard. I am the lead here at JourneyTEAM for adoption and change management. Just wanted to share with you a quick update on the adoption side of things. I want to point you first to that, first with that image there that has a red X. And I think we have all seen this or fallen victim to it at some time in our careers. And that is an email goes out on Monday for a training on Tuesday for a launch on Wednesday. Let me give you the update and the breaking news. This does not work, all right? But I want to share with you what does work, and that is a certain methodology and adoption program that we have here at JourneyTEAM. We also are offering a Teams adoption workshop, and this is funded from Microsoft, by Microsoft. This workshop, it's for IT and business decision makers to go through business use cases, success criteria, training, communication plans, all those things that you need to prepare and equip your users through this change process. So like I say, that is funded by Microsoft. Please get in contact with me about how you can qualify for funding and how that works. Love to share that with you. Outside of the Teams part of it that's funded by Microsoft, we do offer this with other products and services that you might be supporting as well. So love to talk to you about your adoption efforts and how to get into these workshops. So that's all I have from the adoption side.
All right, this is Kip again. Let's jump over to SharePoint. So we had, if you're not using hub sites within your Office 365 SharePoint modern experience, you need to. And if you are, one of the things that we did not have available to us was this ability to approve when a site wanted to join a hub. So we now have that capability. We actually have a UI for it, and it ultimately utilizes Flow for the approval process. So kind of a slick approach. I don't think it's going to be as needed for a lot of organizations. I think for large corporations where you have a formalized intranet and it's growing and there's growth and sprawl kind of happening around an intranet itself, I think this could be a huge value add for most of our clients. All right, another capability that's been given to us is the ability to manage our sharing capabilities on a site-by-site basis. So from within the user interface, you can actually go to your site permissions area in your modern communication or a team site and actually configure how sharing is allowed within your site collection. This includes who has the ability to share, when people request access, who gets those requests, as well as an auto response message for when someone requests access and then you send a message back to them saying, you know, we'll get back to you within a 24-hour period or something like that. Pretty slick. As many of you know, we have the ability to customize our forms in SharePoint lists via Power Apps. That capability has now been brought to us on SharePoint document libraries. So we have that same exact capability now in our libraries. And of course, only modern libraries. Another thing that has been available to us is our ability to swap the root site in our Office 365 tenant. Now, the reason why you see two pictures here of a classic and modern, because this particular functionality has to do with the fact that a lot of people that signed up with Office 365 originally had a root site that was classic, had limited capability. It was not responsive for mobile devices. It was a major problem for a great deal of our clients. And in fact, I'm sure there's multiple people on the phone where we've done this for you before Microsoft made this capable. They now have their own interface to allow us, it's actually a GUI interface through the SharePoint Admin Center, where we can take a modern site that we've provisioned somewhere and swap it with the root site that is classic. And what it will do with your root site is auto archive it into a location. So the business case is build out your new intranet on modern SharePoint, get it perfect, nice and dandy, get the content, get it ready, and then our cutover is the site swap. And then now all of a sudden you'll have your new intranet at the root location of your 365 tenant. Other things that I didn't want to dive into too much, but I just want to call them out. Site swap is not just for root. So we have the ability to swap sites within our tenant from anywhere. Authors now receive notifications on comments on pages. You can now do comments on non-Microsoft Office documents that are stored in document libraries. There's an improved intelligence classification governance where we have auto information governance around labeling. SharePoint lists now have formatting and totals that are available to us. There's a site usage report that will also include data about external sharing. And SharePoint administrators will soon be able to set a per site sharing links default to people with existing access. So we can actually say, when I share, the default capability is share with existing people. So then that way we're not generating more share links to people that already have access. I think that's it on the SharePoint side. I have one Forms update. I do have to say this, Forms Pro is coming. We'll probably do an update soon or a YouTube video on our YouTube channel about what's the difference between Forms Pro versus regular forms. But the one update I do have on forms is we now have a field type of file upload. So now we could possibly ask within a form, a quiz, or a survey for someone to upload something as part of the submission process.
All right, now we're going to go into customer engagement. I'm Eric Vines, and a segue into that from KIPS and talking about Forms Pro is that marketing is going to be receiving a bunch of updates in April. So we've had a number of clients that have tried it. Some have done it successfully. Some have not liked the experience. The good news is Microsoft took that feedback. They've gone back to the drawing board, and specifically Forms Pro will be the survey interface and engine for marketing. And so this will tie into the customer journey and allow people to basically build Forms Pros to capture surveys and the file upload. So very excited about that. And you know, the other things that we'll be mentioning here in marketing, these are planned for release wave 1, where you're able to now do test sends. And so if you want to see what an A/B test looks like, they're going to be releasing that. Within the customer journey today, it tracks a lot of the analytics around how many people entered that step in the customer journey, how many people bounced, how many people clicked, how many people visited. You're now able to export that into Excel. So if you wanted to do further analysis and crunch the numbers that way, you are able to do that. And it's not listed here, but as a plug later on for Preston, that data is available for Power BI to also consume. So if you want to have broader marketing analytics presented in a visual format, you are able to do that from the customer journey analytics that are being captured. My favorite one, the third bullet point, they're going to improve the content designer within the email designer. So they're going to be allowing images on top of images. They're going to be fixing a lot of the spacing and pixeling and headers. They will be enhancing the ability to, again, place content on top of other content, and it will be completely rich media enabled and be able to link out to a lot of the social channels as well. The other thing on the event management side, if people have been considering using D365 for marketing, one of the issues we've had is concurrency and registrations, and they are working on improving the performance of that so that if you're managing a large event and asking people to go through and register on the site, that they're planning on being able to make that so that thousands of people can be registering within seconds, milliseconds of one another, and that all of those registrations are being captured successfully. I'm going to skip the second to last bullet point. The customer journey experience, they're going to make it so that there are more actions and triggers within the flow itself, and improving the relationships of marketing entities in each of those. So if you've got a trigger that says when they visit a landing page, you would be able to say, build a segment for me so that I can start tracking all contacts that have visited that landing page, and it'll create that relationship and generate that. And so segments, emails, forms, landing pages, when we talk about creating those relationships, it's making it so that you can reuse those later, and then also on the analytics side, be able to tie that data together more efficiently. And then lastly, they're going to be improving the segment design and management. And so I've got a screenshot here. I think the key thing to call out is they're going to be making this more user-friendly and consistent with the other workflow or advanced find capabilities that you've traditionally seen in D365, to where you're going to have drop downs and it's going to be the entity, operator, field type structure. So if anybody has been working in segments and they had that whole, union, intersect, exclude, join, and it didn't make any sense because it wasn't consistent at all with the rest of the platform, they are going to be making that more in line with the rest of the process. The other thing that's really cool about segments is now you can actually start doing an additive process. So you can use segments to build segments to create another segment. And so that's kind of cool, where you can actually combine all of those. And then they are adding in more capabilities with market insights, and we'll talk about insights here in a minute, where you're able to start tracking demographic and behavioral and compound segment data from that World Wide Web. All right, on the sales side, one of the things that I think is the coolest announcements coming out in April is that no longer do you have to generate a Word document and try and run some third-party process to convert it to a PDF. You'll finally be able to generate a quote template or whatever type of template into a PDF format. You know, that's the applause from all those people that have been dealing with Word documents in Dynamics for a long time. So pretty excited about that. And again, you'll see that it'll drop it into the timeline in that format. And then on the right, you've got the SharePoint document library that'll associate to as well when those documents are generated. Pretty exciting news there. All right. Then a couple of other things that just came out, and then what is also planned. So in the release wave 2 that happened in October, if you guys have started opting in and using those, today you can do a manual forecast. And so what this does is, it's kind of the one in the background there. It lets you set a target or a quota, and then lets you use attributes on the opportunity to segment out how your salespeople are doing against that. So if you wanted to measure based on a primary product or a definition of, you know, one lost open and see the trajectory of the forecast, you can do that. How it is done is that when you go in to configure your forecasts, you use an Excel template that they pre-generate for you. You download it, you put in all your quota targets. You can do those monthly, quarterly, annually, and then you re-upload it, and then the forecast engine will go through and then calculate based on those attributes of the opportunity what the forecasts are for each of those salespersons. Now, in 2020, coming up in April in release wave 1, they're going to be enhancing that and taking out the ability, or not the ability, but the necessity to use Outlook to upload those. And if you'll notice, there are more attributes that you can use to slice and dice if somebody's going to hit the target and then where they're at on the forecast. Okay, another thing that is coming, we've noticed it in some of the release wave 1. Some people have started to switch over, and you'll notice that there's that show as button in the menu ribbon sometimes. So for things that are date enabled, but you've got 3 different ways that you can start to display activities within Dynamics. And in the release wave 1 in 2020 in April, they're going to be cleaning that up and making it a lot easier. But essentially, you'll have the traditional list or view, you'll have a calendar view, and then you're going to have a board view, so similar to a Kanban board. And then at the top, traditionally, they kind of just had the one filter. You'd say, you know, show me, you know, tasks due next week, or, you know, due in the next 60 days. You'll notice there are different drop-down filters within activities and an additional search that they have added into the product to make navigation and searching happen a lot more easily. So I'm kind of excited to see that one. Again, if you're on release wave 2 2020, you should be able to start seeing the second screenshot there, the calendar layout of that. And then again, here in April, they're going to be rolling out the board view of that. So pretty exciting stuff, pretty cool to see what's going to be happening there. Okay, really quickly, I just want to talk about the right-hand side first. As you know, they finally made the ability to update and modify the close opportunity dialog editable. So fields on modal, you can add to those. You can change what you ask for on the pop-up, and those are, you know, somewhat limited. But now in the center of the screen, you'll be able to, or you can go in and use the quick create form as your closed opportunity, and that is fully configurable within the framework. So if you want to make sure that a certain set of things are filled out and are a part of that opportunity closed, then you're able to do that with a quick create. And you should be able to do that on the quote as well, but they have not provided as good of documentation on that. On the left-hand side, they're going to be continuing to make changes to Assistant. So this used to be called Relationship Assistant. Now it's just Assistant. It's operating on AI, but they're going to allow you to configure new actions. So down there at the bottom, you can already create your own custom action cards. So hey, if somebody creates an appointment, remind them about the appointment an hour before. Now you could have suggested actions, which may be go in detail notes, create a note, create a case. And so you can customize that now. And then the filtering is you can actually start to now filter your assistant cards as well. Show me all of my proximity to account cards. So that'll be pretty cool as well. All right, the other side of Dynamics, the less known side of Dynamics, insights. There are technically 3 insights that they're pushing. There really are 4. We mentioned market insights earlier. That's still in that transition from the old social engagement to market insights, where it's pulling in demographic data. But the ones that I wanted to just give a quick preview on today, sales insights, that is part of Sales Enterprise, as long as you have, I think it's 10 users on Sales Enterprise. But that's where it will go in and start to calculate projections around close volumes, the number of opportunities, leads, quotes. Highly recommend that people go in and set up a trial for that. And then customer service insights is something that we use a lot when we do bots, because it uses the data that is collected from your customer service data. So all of your case information, and that's kind of the screenshot in the background a little bit. But you're able to use your customer insights to then feed data into the virtual agent, which is the kind of the bot framework, to then determine, how do you create flows. So you can use topic data to help decide that. And then lastly, customer insights, one of the newer products in the Insight platform. Think of this as where you can define segments across multiple points of data. So whether it's Dynamics data, Excel data, SQL data, Business Central data, it uses the common data service or any other third-party product. You can tie that data together. You call it unifying the data, but then you can actually start to build all these little tiles that are on the right and create measures and business variables, and you can reuse those in other applications. So I can take that churn score and put it in a Power App or on a SharePoint site or in Business Central or in Dynamics customer engagement. It's a very powerful tool when you need to tie data together to just crunch a quick measure and also create a contact card. And then the last slide I've got here is an example of what that looks like, is that Customer Insights lets you start to build profiles that, again, are aggregating from multiple data sources to centralize your key measures and variables that you want to track about your customers. So extremely cool platform. I see it continuing to be leveraged across the Power Platform and the other Microsoft stack, but Insights is taking off in terms of being able to really get valuable trend and analysis data. So there you go. I think next we've got our Power Platform. Preston.
So we're going to talk about Power Automate and Power Apps now. If you've not heard of Power Automate, maybe you've heard of Microsoft Flow. It got a new name last November at whatever that company's called, Ignite, thank you. And now goes by Microsoft Flow now goes by Power Automate. There's the cool new name. So one of the big things that has been introduced lately is UI flows were introduced. So if you've heard of UI flows, maybe you've already tried them out. The first preview version of this was kind of lame. Some things didn't work as well as we had hoped, but we're now in GA and things are working much better now. So what this allows you to do is to take the mundane things that you're doing click after click that you would do over and over again, and then turn it into a Microsoft Power Automate flow. So if you've got, let's say for example, you've got 2 systems, one legacy and one new, and as you're meeting with a patient as a doctor, you have to gather information in the new tool, and then at the end, copy it field by field from one system to the other. You could create a Power Automate flow, which would allow you to, by the click of the button, go and copy all that information from one place to the other without you having to do anything. So it's pretty cool. Another word they use for this is robotic process automation. You might hear this or see this in web tech articles as RPA, but same idea that you can take these robotic processes, these things you do one step after the other, one or time after time, and then automate the work. So pretty cool stuff going on there. There's a lot of updates that they're delivering on this UI flows bit every single month, whereas other things are being updated a little bit more, I guess, less frequently. They're really devoted to making this bit of it better a lot faster. So yeah, it's kind of where we're at. You can see in the rest of this example, big number to multiply, they're going to hit go. I think we actually made all the way through this already, but anyway, okay. Next one is adaptive cards and teams. This is pretty cool. So if you've not heard of adaptive cards, go to adaptivecards.io and you can get some more information. But essentially, in Teams, you can now ask questions using Flow and send a message to somebody in Teams, and then you can actually put a handful of questions, make it a form survey of sorts. And then as you get this pop up, it's just like a normal message in Teams. Then you can hit yes, this is our question about whether or not someone would be interested in participating in a company-sponsored softball team. They say, yes, it sounds really fun. They hit submit. And then you can see in the flow that they have a result that you can then do something with that result that you received back from users. Definitely, this is actually still in preview, so if you can't see it, you need to turn on your preview features. But I think there's a lot of cool things you'll be able to do with this in the coming days. So last but not least, finally, we have, well, I'll tell you anyways. Yeah, there it is. We finally went GA for the Azure AD SQL Server connector and flow. So historically, you had been able to connect to a SQL Server with Windows SQL Server authentication, but now you can use Azure AD as your authentication method. So that's been a long time coming and probably a little overdue. So that's it for Power Automate. We'll talk about Power Apps. If you don't use Power Apps, it is a super easy to use platform to build applications. The word Microsoft uses is citizen developers. So these are like normal people who have less maybe tech jargon in their brains or didn't go get a CS degree building applications. It's pretty cool. So there's a bunch of things to talk about here. First, there's a new SAP ERP connector in Power Apps. This one's been a long time coming, but if you're using SAP ERP, this one's for you. They had a couple updates to the Center of Excellence starter kit that if you're interested in, let me know. We can talk about more details on that front. This one's still, I'm trying to figure out what the big news here is for this Office 365 integration with the Common Data Service. Other than there are some cool things I think that they're intending that this applies to do or intends to do. So I'm still trying to learn on more what's happening there, but that's a new one. We've got general availability of the Azure AD SQL connector. Talked about that actually in Power Automate, but it also applies here in Power Apps. And now Power Platform data flows. This one's big. If you have ever used Power or data flows in Power BI, you can now use data flows in Power Apps and in Power Automate. What this looks like is the ability for you to do ETL in the cloud and grab data sources from multiple different locations, aggregate them together, and Eric wants to say them too.
I do, because this is the same experience in customer insights. And so again, Microsoft is extending the common data service and how they're allowing you to extract data from multiple disparate sources and combine them together. So what Preston is talking about now is taking what they've started in one tool set and starting to expose it to the broader audiences with Power Apps.
Very cool. And one feature that this is like, they just slid this in the release notes, but you can also now add incremental refresh on data flows, which has historically been something you had to have Power BI Premium in order to do. So this is pretty big. Yeah, big cheering from the crowd here. So a couple more. As of this week, you can now put a Microsoft Stream video inside a channel, add channels inside a Canvas app. That looks something like this. This one's also been a long time coming and pretty simple from what Microsoft has said, but slightly overdue. You can now show stream videos and channels inside your Power Apps. And lastly, but certainly not least, actually, I take it all back. There's way more after this. No, there's not. Test Studio is a new built-in part of Canvas apps, which would allow you to test your Canvas apps to make sure that they're working correctly. So if you were to log in, you can now build tests for a specific use case in your Power Apps to ensure that as you make changes and updates down the line, you don't break it unintentionally by introducing new features and new, I guess, updates to the Power App. So this is pretty cool. Again, if you're curious about what Power Apps are and how to use them, let us know. We'd be happy to help you move along and learn some more there. So that's it for Power Apps.
Okay, what you've been waiting for, Exchange Online update. How boring can email be, right? It's been around forever. We're going to talk about some new stuff that's coming. So first thing, support for plus email addressing. Google's had this forever. What this means is when I sign up for Ignite 2020, I'm going to use the email address of eric.roth plus ignite2020@journeyteam.com. And then when all those vendors scan my badge and I come home with all those spiffs that I love, just kidding, then all the email goes to that address. And I have a nice rule that puts it into a folder and they don't spam the heck out of my normal user account. It's kind of cool, okay?
Can you then turn it off?
No, plus address, there is, you don't, so the question was, can you turn off my plus addressing? No. Anything that Microsoft sees with the plus whatever, it knows it's associated to your account and it dumps it in your mailbox. So you have to have a rule that puts that where you want it, right? And away you go there. So plus address routing is coming in Exchange Online. Another one that I've been waiting for literally 15 years is send from proxy addresses. So this is a case where you have obviously when you send email, it's from your primary email address. And you may have er@journeyteam.com as an alias, and I want to send email from er@journeyteam.com. And now I can pick that from the drop-down list on the from email address. You've had to do third-party products or funky stuff with DLs and send as permissions. It's been a nightmare. So if you have multiple companies in one tenant and they need to personate one user versus the other, then these guys are going to love that. Message recall. I won't even bring up GroupWise. Sorry, I was going to go down that road. So in another time, in another world. Message recall is coming to Exchange now. The ability to retract an email that's sent so that users don't go, sweet, they're trying to retract this email. I'm going to go read it now. That experience is going to change. So that's coming to Exchange Online with much improved and better retract.
And what you were going to say is GroupWise had this a long time ago.
For 20 years ago, exactly. So, okay, another fun thing coming is if your company has ever dealt with fantastic and fun reply to all storms, where people keep replying, quit replying, and the insanity just ensues, right? This still happens today, right? So Exchange can auto-detect these reply to all storms and build a dynamic rule, transport rule basically, that shuts them down and tells the sender knock it off, and it'll do all that dynamically and automatically. So some fun stuff happening there. So Exchange is no longer boring, right? Hopefully that helps. Okay, a couple of enhancements for administrators. So this is really, really big news. In Office 365, the slowest admin center of them all is Exchange, okay? There is a brand new Exchange Admin Center that you can try today, admin.exchange.microsoft.com. It mirrors the same framework that the Office 365 Admin Center has, and so it'll look very similar to the standard O365 interface. And it's going to have a lot of new features and functionality. A little tip I didn't put on here, I should have, is that there's a new Exchange V2 PowerShell. It's significantly faster than the old one, and if you aren't using it, you should definitely check it out. Okay. Customizable recipient limits. How many people can you put on a to field? You can now customize that per user. So your marketing person, you can make them send bigger email, more recipients than your standard employee. Okay. And another super important one on security, securing SMTP auth submissions. What that means is you've got that multifunction printer that needs to scan the email and it has to authenticate. It uses basic auth. And so you've got to allow that for that specific account, but not for all the other human beings that aren't ever doing that. Okay, so you can shut that down for regular traditional accounts and only allow it for specific accounts on the SMTP auth submissions. I mentioned in our last tech update that basic auth is turning off in Exchange Online, except for SMTP, right? Now you can lock it down to just specific accounts. So that's your email update. Let's move on to Business Central.
Welcome. Hi, Greg Crandall from the ERP team. Wanted to bring up a topic that we get talked to and get asked a lot of questions about consistently. Most of our ERP clients and legacy GP customers and legacy NAV customers are always on premise. Many of our new clients are on premise. The discussion happens, why should I go to the cloud? Why should I use Business Central in the cloud? And wanted to talk briefly about the value of being on the cloud for your ERP instance. It's not normal, it's new, it's accelerating in the marketplace, but it's always a discussion topic. The value of being in the cloud for an ERP system. First and foremost, I wanted to go to the next slide. Where is the value of IT? As I sit and talk with business leaders and with IT leaders, we're always looking to maximize the value of IT services and the IT budgets. In fact, last week I was in front of a CEO and his IT leader discussing the merits of hardware updates, firmware updates, using that time from his IT people to apply patches, manage the hardware in the data center versus his express comment was, I want to grow, I need to expand my medical practice or my medical facilities. So there's infrastructure work there that I need to do. But his comment struck me when he said, I need to increase the number and relevance of actionable operational data. I really want my IT people to be focused on the information that we have within the systems, making it actionable and improve the value that IT and that information is bringing to that company. And it hit home to me because that is the highest value I can see from using cloud infrastructure to run your ERP system. It's discussed, it's fearful in the marketplace, but it's real when people migrate and go that direction. It's felt by business leaders, and as IT leaders, as we embrace that and look at that, the value that you provide within your company increases, and the scope of your influence on the company and the value you bring to the company is improved. Secondarily, security. The level of sophistication, the level of knowledge, the level of tools that exist in the cloud will far exceed, almost in every case, the level of capability that our local IT providers can keep up with. As the marketplace and the security threats increase, the ability for a cloud infrastructure to keep up with that far exceeds the ability of our limited IT staffs to keep up with that. I could give you another example of a phishing, an accountant who responded to a phishing email. He gave up his login to his username and his password within an hour. Every single email was siphoning off to a foreign country, but because of the monitoring tools that were in place, the company is able to quickly see that, respond to that, and cut it off. Things that we don't have the time to look at when it's in the cloud, they're monitored and they're watched. So ransom payments, any malicious attacks, those things, it's much safer in the cloud. Another advantage or value in being in the cloud for ERP system would be the work from anywhere approach. Regardless of the device, regardless of where you're at, trying to find and utilize a VPN goes away. If you can hit the URL and hit the browser and or use the app on the device that you're using, you can connect to these ERP systems in the cloud. Make sure salespeople or people in the field much more dynamic in how they link to the ERP system and get the data when they want, wherever they are. Lastly, building upon an ERP system as a foundational accounting system and core supply chain system is important. Many of our clients, though, have specific processes, specific activities that they need to do that could be enhanced without customization by using AppSource. So similar to how applications on our phones, whether it's an iPhone or whether it's an Android phone, we go to the App Store and we can download the specific app that I want. Microsoft, in its ability to support Business Central, has provided a large network of extensions that are seamlessly integrated to Business Central and enhance the usage, the automation, and the ability to support activities that are not core to Business Central, and built on top of the same platform where you get the advantages of being in a hosted environment where it is secure is one of the advantages. So if you have an area in your company that you're wondering, is it supported in Business Central, going to AppSource and be able to see the many options and capabilities of extensions that are there and available will allow Business Central to be used in a wider range of industries and processes.
All right. Thanks, Greg. So we're going to talk about Power BI. There are a lot of updates in Power BI this last quarter, and a lot of good ones. So to start us off, first one is that publish to web is no longer the default, meaning you can't have, well, as of this week, but your team members will no longer be able to, by default, publish your company, proprietary company information to the web, like the World Wide Web. This has been on my complaint list for the last couple of years, and finally, it's they've taken it to heart, and this no longer be there. So if you'll start seeing this change come out to admins later this week. There's also improved report usage metrics for modern workspaces, so that looks something like this. In the past, report usage has been a little bit okay. It's quite a bit better now. You have to turn on the new report usage report. You have to turn it on basically, but there's a little toggle at the top to see the new one. So after that, we've got a new premium capacity metrics app. So if you're running Power BI Premium or if you are running Power BI Embedded, you can use the premium capacity metrics app from the Power BI App Store to see better health center metrics. So it looks something like this, but you're gonna have to download. If you've already downloaded it, you'll need to delete the old one and reinstall the new one in order to get these updates. They're working on making that roll out a little bit smoother, but there's quite a bit of new features and functionality in the premium capacity metrics app. So the next three we've got are, there's a new version of the on-premises data gateway. If you're using that to sync your on-premises data with the cloud, you should go and update it. And be mindful that you need to do this pretty much monthly. There's a new Power BI activity log API. So this new Power BI activity log allows you as a service, Power BI service admin, to track users and admin activities within the Power BI tenant. So it's kind of comparable to what you'd see in the Office 365 audit log, but it contains a more complete Power BI auditing data. There's a lot of stuff that we've kind of been having to do in some roundabout ways to get to this kind of information that it is now a little bit easier to get to. So let us know if you have any questions on that front. And then the next thing was that we got a new look for the Power BI mobile app, and they added an activity feed. So by and large, it's the same app. It just looks a little bit nicer, and we've added this activity feed, which allows you to see comments that have been made in a little bit more concise and easy to consume area. So next, this one's a big one, is that you can now upgrade your classic style workspaces to modern workspaces. Historically, when you created a workspace in Power BI, it would do all sorts of evil things in the background that Office 365 administrators would just loathe you for. And you didn't even know what was happening. But that's been fixed with the modern workspace, and now you can take your old workspaces and upgrade them. The experience looks something like this, but by and large, the big benefits are, oh, my little video is not playing, that's okay. The big benefits here are that you've got more workspace roles. They've added the viewer-only role to the new workspace. You can now share data sets across workspaces if you're using the new workspace experience, and you get better access management. Previously, you'd have to go to the Office 365 Admin Center to deal with the group that was assigned to that. It was a mess. Way cleaner and easier to manage with the new workspace experience. You can now customize your current theme right inside of Power BI. Historically, this would look like you would need to export a JSON file, manipulate it, and then re-upload it and see how well it worked. Now you've got the capability to just choose colors and go from there. It's pretty freaking smooth. You get to it from the View tab in the ribbon and then go down to Customize Current Theme. So pretty easy. We've got 2 more updates here. The Azure Data Lake Gen 2 connector is now generally available so that you can connect to your stuff in Azure Data Lake Gen 2 and pull it in as part of your Power BI report. And there are some pretty cool updates to the AI Insights visual, which are now in preview. If you haven't turned on the preview features in Power BI, you can do that. Just go to the File options and Settings options, and then look for preview features. That's where all the fun new stuff is. So that's it for Power BI.
Okay, I'll pick it up with the last things. I've got 8 minutes, no problem. So first thing, Microsoft has published a blog about their identity priorities for 2020. It's kind of high level. A lot of it's like, great, what is this actually going to give me from a technology standpoint? But I think it's worth pointing out this is where Microsoft is focusing. The big things to me is, I'll just tell you what these are a little bit. Connect all apps and cloud resources, that's improvements to single sign-on. So if you're not integrating things for single sign-on, we need to talk. Second one is being able to have developers get their apps onboarded for single sign-on and integrated for the new cloud-based modern way of doing authentication and authorization. They're going to simplify that. And then another huge one here is automated access lifecycle for users. So this is who gets access when and how they request that, how you test that that access is still legitimate and still needed on a regular basis, and audit and track all that. Lots of neat stuff happening there. And then Microsoft's continual march towards passwordless. I've got a slide on the next page to talk more about that. So they're focusing more on that. We'll dig into that a little bit. And their zero trust. That's a really common industry buzzword right now, where you don't trust anybody. You instantiate at runtime the state of affairs and see if this is a valid thing or not, or a risky behavior or not. So more developments in that. So those are just some cool priorities. You can Google that name to get the big long URL of their blog if you're interested in that. So digging in a little bit to passwordless. So Microsoft's published kind of 4 steps. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Well, maybe. In short, define your passwordless and biometric strategy. Which devices will you allow them to use? Windows Hello, thumbprint, facial ID, etc. Move your identities to the cloud. Obviously, for all this to work, Microsoft is investing a whopping 0% for on-prem to do this passwordless stuff. Okay, if you want passwordless, you will be using Azure AD or some other cloud service. Okay, a big thing that they talked about, who wants to increase their security by 99.9%, meaning your odds of compromise are reduced by 99.9% when you turn on multi-factor. That's obviously a path towards passwordless login. Greg talked about ERP systems in the cloud and the more security that you can get from that. If you're not doing MFA and you're using ERP in the cloud, then Greg's gonna chop your head off and then come tell me to talk to you. So anyway, and then start piloting passwordless, okay? No reason why you can't do this today to get away from using passwords. Another quick little point I wanna mention here, a little tech tip here. Microsoft is supporting, or will be supporting soon, SMS authentication for the frontline workers. So traditional frontline workers are the people with F1 licenses, for example, and they get functionality with limited space, limited quantity of OneDrive and email space and things like that. And they can now not have to have a username and password, but they plug in their phone number, they get a text, they put the code in, and they're authenticated with just SMS. So super easy to onboard and offboard people and just let them use their phones for authentication. Kind of cool coming up. The last thing is Microsoft Endpoint Manager. If you don't know what that word means and you're doing Intune, then you need to know what Endpoint Manager is. So in short, the Intune admin console is not the strategic door to do all your device management in Office 365. It's now the official endpoint manager. This is a consolidated view for all of your quote device management. Nice new URL, devicemanagement.microsoft.com. It combines your Intune, your config manager, and the Office 365 endpoint tools all consolidated together in one house, in one view for your endpoint manager. There's new features and functionality that are coming here that aren't going anywhere else. So, for example, they just announced the Office app policies, which aren't necessarily deployed with Intune. These are tied to the apps specifically. So, good stuff happening there. So that's what I've got as a summary for the security piece on Azure AD and some endpoint manager stuff. So I think that's where we're at. I'll turn the time back to Brian.
We had one question in the chat that asked when the plus addressing was going to go live.
I'm going to use Microsoft's word and say soon.
Okay.
Okay, that could be anytime this year. Specifically, I would look for it by this summer. Okay, so my understanding is it was a Q1 thing, and so by summer we should have some updates from Microsoft on that. Okay, so first half of this year is what I would look for. Great question.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for attending. I hope this content was helpful. We would love your feedback. Like to know what you liked, what went well, and how we could do this better, or what else you would like to see in these events. We will be sending out a survey. Please take that survey, give us your feedback, let us know. We're all about adding value and making this great for you guys. And then the other thing,
Go hit our YouTube channel.
hit our YouTube channel. This will go out to YouTube as well. If it's recorded, you want to share it with other people, feel free to share that link. We'll push it out. And then if you guys have questions, concerns, want more information on this, or want to engage with us on something we talked about today, feel free to reach out to us directly or mention a comment on that survey. We'd be happy to follow up and do more. So thank you everyone for attending. We're off.
We can talk.
Okay. Good job.
We ended with 2 minutes.